Great. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on serving meals on weekends and holidays. Like Nomi mentioned, my name is Clarissa Hayes, and I'm a Senior Policy Analyst here at FRAC, and I will be moderating today's webinar. So thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us for this very exciting conversation. Serving meals on weekends, holidays, and school breaks through the federal nutrition programs provides an important opportunity to better address food insecurity while also drawing down additional reimbursements, which can help make programs more sustainable. Meals served on weekends and school breaks can add up, averaging up to 70 additional days of meal service during the school year. While serving meals on non-school days during the school day has always been an option through CACFP, it has remained underutilized. As we are also transitioning away from the summer food service program waivers that were available last year, we wanted to host this webinar as a refresh on the current program options and what are current flexibilities through the meal programs. So we do have joining us today 3 great speakers who will share what their programs looked like last year and how they have adapted to continue this important service for this school year. And we just hope that you leave with some tips and tricks and things to think about when it comes to expanding or enhancing your meal service when it comes to weekends and holidays. So we would love to take your questions at the end, and we will save them for that time. So if you do have any questions or comments as we go along, feel free to use the Q&A function that is on your screen, and we will answer those after everyone presents. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just give a quick look at today's agenda and who we have presenting. So again, Clarissa Hayes with FRAC. I will be giving a refresh on the program options and some of the flexibilities that are still available during COVID-19. From there, I'm going to turn it over to Doreen Hassan, who's the Community Director at the YMCA of Silicon Valley. Next, we'll hear from Barbara Harrell, who is a registered dietitian nutritionist with the Montgomery County Public Schools. And then last but not least, we'll hear from Kara McNamara, who is the marketing coordinator at the Food and Nutrition Office with San Diego Unified School District. So we have a really full, great roster. We're very excited to get into the conversation. All right, so again, just as a quick refresh on what the program options are for serving meals on weekends and holidays during the school year looks like. So through the Child and Adult Care Food Program and the After School Meal Program, on non-school days, sponsors and schools can serve up to 1 meal and 1 snack. And on those non-school days, there is flexibility in what meal can be served. So it does not have to be that traditional supper and a snack that's happening after the school day ends. It could be a breakfast and a snack or a lunch and a snack. You can definitely work with your state agency to determine what is the best option. Similar to how the program runs all year round during the school year, all meals are reimbursed at that free rate. So a quick little reminder that I wanted to give is that we know that the Seamless Summer option is an available option for schools right now during the school year to provide breakfast and lunch, and that is actually not an option to serve meals on weekends and school breaks, unless weekend instruction is considered an integral part of the school day. So if there's a school that's having instruction over the weekend or during school breaks, it can count under Seamless Summer option. Otherwise, that is not a program opportunity for serving weekend meals. And the next slide that I just wanted to give is that last year, as I'm sure everyone knows, we did have more flexibilities with using the summer food service program to cover breakfast, lunch, supper, snack, whatever combination of meals you were doing. And that option did end in the summer. So again, summer food service program is not an option for weekends or school breaks, but CACFP after school meal program is. All right. So with that, despite having, some different flexibilities for the school year, and Nomi, if you want to go back 1 slide, please. Great, thank you. So I just want to cover some of the waiver flexibilities that we still have for the school year, despite, summer food not being an option. So the first is the area eligibility waiver, and what this does is it makes more areas eligible to participate in the CACFP after school meal program. So this waiver eliminates the need for a program site to be in an area where at least half of the students are certified for free or reduced price school meals. And this does broaden, the opportunities for sites to serve meals on those non-school days. So I definitely wanted to flag this. And this waiver is actually available for the full school year, and it's not tied to operating status or level of need like some of the other waivers. So in addition to that, for CACFP, there still are some meal service flexibilities. So meals can be served through some of those alternative service models that we've been seeing over the last year and a half, including non-congregate, multiple days worth of service. So that includes like grab and go and curbside and home delivery. The only thing I want to flag for everyone here is that you should be working with your state agency to determine what is possible based on your operating status and the need of the students in your community. So it isn't a blanket waiver. You do have to make sure that that is approved and that you're communicating with your state agency. And lastly, a flexibility that continues to be an option is around the enrichment requirement. So I'm sure everyone knows that over the last year and a half, that requirement has been able to be met virtually or through take-home activities. And again, that still is an option to be bundled with the meals, but always, again, make sure you're checking in with your state agency before making any changes to your program. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so here at FRAC, expanding the number of meals served on weekends and holidays during the school year and then also during the summer has definitely been a priority of ours because, like I mentioned earlier, it is a program option during the school year as well as the summer through the summer food service program, but it does remain underutilized. So we are always looking for tips and tricks to make this work for sponsors and schools across the country, and that's why we're really excited about today's conversation. But I wanted to just highlight few best practices that we've seen in our work on this. So especially during COVID-19, what we saw a lot of sponsors and schools do is if they were doing weekend or holiday service is to consolidate the service sites. So obviously having enough sites in the community is definitely important to ensuring access. But when adding weekend or holiday meals, schools and community sponsors may want to consider streamlining operations by consolidating meal service to some of the more popular meal pickup sites. We've also heard from meal service providers that prepping meals earlier in the week or even a few days before the weekend has been helpful just when we think about staffing capacity. So that's one way to also reduce labor costs. And then we also know that weekends are definitely different than having a captive audience during the school day. So a lot of partners have been using a survey or some kind of registration form to determine interest and participation. So that can, again, just help to determine the need and then also to reduce food waste. So other than that, I just wanted to mention that we're not specifically targeting it during this presentation, but we also know that, winter is right around the corner for many states, and it's definitely important to start thinking about a plan for any kind of inclement weather. So what we've heard has worked really well is just keeping shelf-stable items ready in the event of storms or any kind of weather that makes it hard to get to school. And then just similar to the other best practices, thinking about site locations and timing. So having one or two locations that families know are the pickup sites that are always the pickup sites and having that communication with them, and then thinking about the pickup time. Is it better to do midday rather than morning or evening? And being able to be flexible and to get that information out to families. So those are just some of the things that we've seen work really well, and I will share some FRAC resources at the end of today's webinar, but I definitely want to turn it over to our amazing experts and the people who are running these programs on the ground to talk about their meal service. So to kick us off today, we have Doreen from the YMCA of Silicon Valley, who's going to share what they have been doing over the last year and a half. So Doreen, I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Clarissa, for having me here today. My name is Doreen Hassan, and I serve as the Community Director for the YMCA of Silicon Valley. We're in a pretty large service area that spans several cities from Gilroy to Redwood City, if you're familiar with the Bay Area in California. Next slide. And I've worked with the Y for over 20 years, and my role is really about leading the year-round meal program efforts. So we've been a meal sponsor for both SFSP and CACFP for the past 11 years. We're currently sponsoring 50 at-risk after-school programs in person, providing enrichment services in partnerships with schools, libraries, and community centers. And last year this time and during the school year, we were sponsoring about 22 to 35 in-person at-risk after-school sites. And a handful of those provided in-person pickup for the enrichment kits. We still made a commitment to provide enrichment, though we did use the waiver. And this past summer, we sponsored 34 SFSP sites, and in 2020, we sponsored 27. So it's a lot of sites. I'm just sharing kind of the background of what we do here at the Y. And this year, we're offering services at 85 schools, leveraging both our state after-school ACES funds as well as federal 21st Century Community Learning Center grants across 10 cities in our service area. Because we have such a regular relationship with the community and in schools and in communities, it really naturally led to our partners and our community asking about weekend and asking about holiday meals prior to the pandemic and even more so during the pandemic. And we were so very excited to be able to use the non-congregate and mealtime waivers to really increase access to really much needed meals when at a time, you know, thinking about last year, this time, there was so much uncertainty, no vaccines, so many not working, shelter in place in some places, and then we had another surge last fall. Next slide. And so I really want to emphasize the power of partnership that makes more meals possible for those in need. Unique to us, we work with our local libraries, serving 11 libraries and helping to sponsor after-school meals. And I'll share some stories in greater detail. And in the summertime, we help to sponsor our local children's shelter that provides a summer camp experience. As well as year-round, we sponsor several community centers, as well as our YMCA after-school programs, learning labs, and our branch facility locations that offer programs. Next slide. I want to highlight that because of the waivers last year, we really absolutely we're so happy to be able to use a non-congregate and a mealtime waiver because not every school could have students in session. However, they could pick up supplies, pick up meals, and we offered meals in coordination with materials pickup for both our after-school programs that we're running virtually, as well as our in-person programs. Unique to our services, we leveraged existing grants to provide in-person distance learning at many school sites as well as in our YMCAs. What our library partners did, because we realized that not all families could pick up meals around the lunch hour or in the mornings when many schools offered meals, our libraries committed to drive-through dinner. So they picked up supper meals, and our libraries offered meals on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for 7 days out of the week, giving out multiple meals. And I'll show some pictures on the next slide to show you kind of how that worked out. Next slide. So here, this is at our Morgan Hill Library. The Second Harvest Food Bank gave us banners in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese advertising meals. So you'll see that in the front of the school and also at our meal table. And this is at the end of meal service. So this is Friday meal service using SFSP in the summertime. Currently, the libraries actually are all serving in person. Because we have vaccines and students are in session, our library schools and programs are back doing daily service. But I wanted to share how we do weekend meals using SFSP during the school year, and I'll talk about how we use CACFP during SFSP during the summer and CACFP during the school year. So what you'll see here is we have 3 meals for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all bagged up together that goes into the cars of families, and they're taking our meal counts as well as tracking the cars that are coming through and walk up. So it was really just a really enriching experience for libraries to engage in weekend services as well as holidays. And at this particular library, we had so many comments and gratitude from the community that during the time of the pandemic, when so many were not working, and for families trying to make ends meet, whether it was paying for rent or mortgage, the meals made such a tremendous difference in the household budget. And during the summer months, a unique partnership we have with our local food bank is that they secured funding for adult meals. So we tracked adult meals separately, and we're also able to have support from our local food bank to support and really alleviate family hunger. Their goal was to address the needs of a whole family through partnership. Next slide. And so here's some more photos, and this is our in-person programs, and I'm going to kind of switch gears to what we're doing now. So right now, we're providing in our after-school programs through CACSP daily meal service. And at one of our school districts, we partner with the school district as the vendor, and on Fridays, they receive meals for the weekend. So we're using the mealtime non-congregate waivers, and then on Fridays, providing the weekend meals. And what we plan to do during holiday break, the Friday beforehand, is provide up to, we are allowed to provide up to 7 meals for that first holiday break. So we're looking forward to doing that. We did that at some of our schools last year. Currently, we're also partnering with 4 of our school districts as the meal vendor, and then 1 commercial vendor, Revolution Foods. So it's really such a wonderful opportunity to ensure the most vulnerable students have access to food, and we know how critical having food is to the development of the whole child. At a time when we're focused on social emotional learning and well-being, hunger, addressing hunger, alleviating hunger is really at the heart of that. Next slide. And so I have a sample menu. You might wonder, what can we serve? Yes, we have shelf-stable meals, and during our SFSP service, we had a lot of shelf-stable meals on hand because we were finding that a lot of children and families living out of their cars or without refrigeration asked us about that. And so we found that having those options in the summer months was really important. And then currently, with one of our vendors, Revolution Foods, they have what's called grab and goes. And this is, just a sample menu of some of the things that we offer. And this is not shelf-stable, the menu that I have here, but this is the CACSP kits that they created that are completely kind of packaged in a manner similar to the photo that you saw, that makes it very easy to stack and to assemble for weekend meal packaging. Next slide. And then lastly, I just wanted to review, we are using the non-congregate CACFP waiver that is very helpful for providing weekend meals, as well as a mealtime service waiver, and then allowing parents to pick the meals up when they pick up their children has been wonderful. We also applied for the meal pattern flexibility waiver in the event of supply chain challenges. Interestingly, we didn't have too many challenges during the pandemic here locally, but this fall we have seen more substitutions. We're still meeting the meal pattern, which I'm very happy about, but we've seen greater substitutions due to supply chain challenges. So, I know I'm talking to our nutrition service teams, and they're also sharing that there seems to be more difficulty as we're coming into this year. So it's really important to apply for all the waivers because you just don't know what is to come. And we also have used the area eligibility waivers for several of our programs as well, where we're providing a snack instead of a supper due to some storage challenges we're having. But, it is fantastic to be able to provide food to kids. And I just really want to emphasize that collaboration and partnership is really how we've been able to navigate some of the challenges, whether it be around staffing. We partner with our county intern and earn program, where we were able to have additional hands help support our meal program during the summer months. During the school year, we're currently really challenged with hiring to meet our capacity of services to students, but we're able to manage with what we have currently. You know, it is an interesting journey moving through the pandemic. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're just very happy that we can provide programs in person, provide meals in person, as well as weekend and holiday meals. So with that, I want to thank everyone for your time, and thank you, Clarissa, for having me today. And type your questions in the chat box. I'll turn it over back to you, Clarissa.
Great, thank you, and thanks for that plug for questions. I do see a couple coming in, so keep those coming if you have any questions about how Doreen is procuring meals, getting those out, working with partners. I really liked how you talked about, you know, utilizing the partners that you already have, and I think you know, a lot of us are still focused on COVID-19 time program operations, but the truth is that many programs are going back into session. And I know, Doreen, you mentioned libraries, which are such a great partner for weekend meal service, because we know that that is, for many communities, a central hub. So if you are looking to expand into weekends and maybe don't have your own programs that you're operating, it's a great opportunity to connect with some of those partners across, you know, your city, your town, and see what's happening on the weekends. I know YMCAs obviously are huge partners, Parks and Rec, Boys and Girls Club, community centers, you know, just to think about where children are going on weekends rather than trying to kind of create a program around that already. They're already existing out there. So great. Well, we're going to go ahead on to our next speaker, and I thought that Barbara was able to hop on, and she's actually joining us and taking a break from another meeting that she's part of. So we're very glad that she can join and talk about what Montgomery County Public Schools is doing around weekend meal service, and we just really appreciate the time and the flexibility. So Barbara, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to you to share your remarks.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. For some reason this afternoon, I'm not sure why, is very popular for virtual meetings. But I am happy to present an update on what we have done and what we are doing now. We are utilizing, similar to Doreen, we're utilizing all of the waivers and did last year that we could. And so I'll talk a little bit about what we did last year while we were still in the pandemic. Our schools reopened partially in February and then a little bit more fully in March and April prior to spring break. We did not have 100% of our students back by any means. So up until March 1st, we really operated in a pretty much virtual world. At that time, we were distributing meals at 89 sites. We were also distributing at community centers, at apartment complexes, and a couple of churches. So we were able to do that because we had staff from 208 schools and didn't have 208 schools or distribution sites open. So we were able to double up and move staff around. We also utilized Department of Transportation, AKA our bus drivers, who also assisted us in the distribution efforts. So last year, the day before Thanksgiving, that week, we did a distribution that was a multi-day meal box. One hint that I will pass along is that we called it our Thanksgiving box. And so a lot of our families thought that they were getting a turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce, when in fact they were not. They were getting, you know, a certain number of meals that we would send home for the kids. So coming up and that was very successful for us. We, for the holiday break, which would have been in late December, we did a multi-day distribution on December 23rd because we wanted to be able to cover the needs of our families going forward over that weekend, and we distributed those at our 89 sites. For the last week in December, we did another distribution that was by Google Form order only, and we did that at about 12 sites geographically spread out around the county so that we could hit as many areas of the county as possible. So that was successful as well. However, we did have a high no-show rate. So we put out messages to the community and let them know that from our home site, we have a central production facility and a central warehouse. So we were able to open that up for people to come by during the week if they wanted to come pick up the boxes. Obviously, that week, we didn't want to hold boxes till the first week in January. Those were very successful. We did partner with a number of our community partners, and those included some of our faith-based operations, but they also included MANA, Women Who Care Ministries, and Up to Us. And so they would distribute on Fridays usually to many of our sites, again, with support from our transportation partners. And that was very successful for all of us. We found that some of our working parents were not able to get to our sites because most of our site distribution was, say, 11 to 1, which was during the break for the virtual education students. So we did open up 2 sites on either side of the county that were weekly distributions. So they were bulk boxes that parents could pre-order and pick up, say, 7:30 to 9 o'clock. So if they were working parents, they could come pick up their boxes and take them home. So that was our distribution last year and partially through the summer. So going back this year, we have all of our schools open and we have, for the most part, all of our kids back. We do have a virtual academy that has about 3,500 students enrolled, and we also have our early college and middle school college campus kids that do not go to a campus. So they are basically virtual as well. So for those students, we are doing weekly boxes. It's 7 days worth of snack and supper, and it's 5 days worth of breakfast and lunch. They pre-order those on a Google form. We do send a confirmation back home to them, and we have our staff from our virtual academies also communicate with them about the changes. Sort of our lessons learned are changing the hours or the days is very difficult. Our families do not adjust well to that. When we have an early release date, because we are still depending upon our bus drivers to do our bulk distribution for us, quite honestly, we do not have the staff to do it. We don't have the staff at all. So they are doing that, and they can only do it between 11 and 1. If it's an early release day, our bus drivers cannot assist us. So we had to change 1 week from Friday to Thursday. We sent out communication, we sent reminders, and we still had people who showed up on Friday to pick up their boxes. So that continues to be a challenge for us. For the holidays, for Thanksgiving, the other challenge will be that we will have to provide 2 weeks worth of meals to our virtual academy and early college virtual students because we usually distribute on Friday. So Friday, the 19th of November, we will distribute those boxes. We are looking at as many shelf-stable items as we can for that box, just so that we don't overload families' refrigerators. Based on the success of that, and we know it will be successful, we will then look to what we can do for the holiday break in December. Our supply chain, so during the pandemic, we had a similar experience to Doreen. We did not have as many critical shortages. I would say 99% of the time we met all of the meal guidance, meal regulations, no problems, but this fall has been the worst ever. There's a daily list of things that we cannot get or did not show up, not in production, short supply, shorted on, late deliveries. And that's about it for Montgomery County.
Great. Thank you so much, Barbara. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So you definitely had, some great pointers on the Thanksgiving holiday, and that's really why we wanted to host this webinar now, because we know we are going into November and December where schools are closed for more days at a time. So it's really an important time to connect with your state agency and, see what your options are. But I'd also flag, we have a spring break right around the corner from there as well. So just some opportunities to really hone in and get that plan settled before those times are here. And then, Barbara, you also mentioned working with apartment complexes and faith-based organizations, which again, when we think about weekend partners, have really stepped up. They've always, been key partners for meal programs, but I think especially during COVID-19, as schools were virtual and children are spending more time at home, those apartment complexes can be really great opportunities for sites. And yes, definitely hear you about supply chain issues. I'm sure everybody on this call is hearing and facing similar things. I know that USDA is doing their best to provide funding support, and there was that waiver recently that was released around not being fiscally penalized if you're not able to meet those meal patterns. So again, just a warning and a reminder if you are seeing any of those things in your area to make sure to continue to check in with your state agency for support. That's great. Well, that was a lot to get. Oh, go ahead.
So one thing I was going to add, Clarissa, one of the things that we found our families were sort of looking for last year, and we are going to include in the Thanksgiving box because it'll be the week before, they were looking for things like whole onions, celery, whole carrots, stuffing mix. We have a whole grain stuffing mix, a dry one. And so we're going to put those in some of our boxes so they will get sort of some of the ingredients that they might need for their Thanksgiving meals. And that's based on feedback that we got back from our families last year.
Yeah, that's great. Just to make it a little bit more seasonal and fun. We definitely heard last year that other bulk and, go home boxes had similar things when it was around the holidays. So that's great. And we'll definitely, I know there was a question about sharing menus, and we'll get Doreen's, and we'll try to get Barbara's and Tara's as well, and just provide that as a resource after today's recording.
So I'll ask the funny question, menu as written or menu as served?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker. We're going to flip back over to, next slide. We're going to flip back over to California, and we have Tara McNamara from the San Diego Unified School District, who is going to be joining us to speak about their meal service during COVID-19 last year and this year. So Tara, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Clarissa, for inviting me to speak to all of the attendees about what we have going on in San Diego Unified. So if we switch to the next slide, I'll give you a little bit of a background of our district. We serve 226 sites. That's for about 103,000 students. In a typical year, we do operate the National School Lunch and Breakfast programs, as well as CACFP suppers and the Seamless Summer option during winter, spring, and summer breaks. Since COVID shut down our schools back in March of 2020, we have been operating under the Seamless Summer option, as well as the CACFP now for those weekend lunches. Since the time that we did switch over to our emergency feeding in March 2020, all the way up through September of this year, before we opened up our schools, we had been able to serve more than 30 million meals to students and families in need throughout our communities. Next slide. So just for a little bit of background about how we operated last school year during the height of the pandemic, that school year was split into two phases. The first phase, our students were solely distance learning. So we served all of our meals via curbside meal pickup locations where all children 18 years and younger and their families could either drive through or walk up to receive 21 meals each week. So we served those meals Monday through Friday. However, they did include breakfast, lunch, and supper for every day of the week. So those extra meals that were for the weekend were included in a few of the bags during the week, spread out from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to lighten the load for our storage and our labor of packing those bags and handing them out. At the peak, we did have 84 curbside locations throughout our district that were operating. In addition to those student meals for the children, we also partnered with the San Diego Food Bank and Feeding San Diego, as well as utilized some private donations and the USDA food boxes to provide additional family meal items, dry goods, and fresh produce. So this helped not only fill that gap that so many of our families were experiencing with food insecurity, But it also really did help to boost our participation with the student meals on those days where we were providing the extra family food boxes. So then in April of 2021, we moved into phase 2 of our district reopening, which meant that we had about 60% of our students back on campus while the rest continued with online learning. So this is where we first implemented our hybrid model of service. So the students who were on campus, they were receiving lunch at school, and the rest of their meals, including weekend meals, were being provided in take-home meal bags. So with that, we had to shift our labor to later in the day so that we could pack all those items and get them out to either the classrooms or the exit points around the campus so that students could grab those meals on their way home, since that did contain the bulk of their meals for the week. Our distance learners and community families still had access to our curbside meal distribution. We did just reduce down from that 84 since so many of our students had entered back into in-person learning. So this year, we can move to the next slide, we have followed a very similar type of hybrid service model. We had thought maybe through the summer that when we started the fall, it would look a little bit more normal. However, then we had a spike again, and we had to revert back a little bit and slim down our menus and make some adjustments with our service style on campus and with what we were sending home with students to accommodate. So this school year, we are offering 17 meals each week free of charge for all students and children 18 and younger. And that's because even though all of our schools are fully opened, we do still have a small amount of students enrolled in our virtual academy. So we have 4 remaining curbside meal pickup locations where those distance learners or families with children not yet in our school system can pick up meals. So of the 17 meals we serve each week, we serve lunch ready to eat on campus, but the rest of the meals are offered in those take-home meal bags. So that's breakfast for the next day, supper meals, and weekend meals. So similar to what we did at the end of the last school year, we just include the lunch for Saturday and lunch for Sunday in the weekend meals. So even though we are choosing to offer lunches for the weekend meals, it does fall within the CACFP. It is not National School Lunch Program lunches for the weekend. And we take a similar approach when holidays arise. So even when it's, a single day holiday like Labor Day, we're able to add on that one additional extra meal that we are able to serve and put that into a meal bag either the day before or the day after the holiday. Next slide. So some of the key waivers that we've utilized that have allowed us to serve in these models for the past year and a half are probably ones that you are all similarly using. We use the seamless summer option, a nationwide waiver, allowing us to claim all of our meals so that we can get that maximum rate, that is, except for the weekend meals at this time. We also are using the non-congregate meal service so that we don't have to, so that we're able to send home the meals in bulk and not have to serve them at their specified meal time. The meal time requirements, so that goes hand in hand with the non-congregate meal service so that we can give out the weekend meals on the Thursday and the Friday instead of actually on Saturday and Sunday. And I did see a question pop up that asking what kind of enrichment activities we're providing for the CACFP weekend and holiday meals. And we have partnered with, we do still offer some supper meals on campus for our after-school programs, and those are operated through Primetime and the 21st Century program. those organizations were able to provide us with online enrichment platforms that are available and free for all children 18 and younger. So we send that information out to our students. It's all posted on our website, and we will periodically include flyers in the take-home meal bags, letting them know that those enrichment activities are available, and we have that information with the enrichment activities being available posted where we distribute all of the take-home meal bags. We are also using the waiver to allow parents and guardians to pick up meals. That's how we're able to continue with those curbside meals, where we also have the weekend meals. And another big one for us is the area eligibility waiver in after-school programs. So that's allowing all of our school sites to offer these weekend meals in the take-home meal bags, regardless of their area eligibility to serve suppers. So even though all of these 6 waivers were in effect last year, that big difference is just that the seamless is only through Monday through Friday. So that's why we dropped from 21 down to 17. Instead of being able to serve breakfast, lunch, and supper, we're only serving the 1 meal on Saturday and Sunday under CICFP. I did see a question about milk waivers. We are utilizing meal pattern flexibility waivers, as well as implementing offer versus serve methods. So we have encouraged our sites when they are setting up for the take-home meal bags to include key components. So it is a fully reimbursable meal for all of the meals that are included in the take-home meal bags. And then where it is possible, having like a milk cooler set out near the exit points. So we leave it up to the students if they want to take an extra milk to round out that meal. So we are not serving milk with every single meal. Next slide. So through all of this, as you can see, getting students to actually pick up and take that take-home meal bag home really is essential for us. For not only getting out those weekend and holiday meals, but also, just the bulk of the nutrition for our students. That's where they're getting their breakfast for the next day. So we really want to make sure that they're taking that so that they can eat the breakfast before they get to school. But as I mentioned before, so we had implemented this type of hybrid service model at the end of last school year, which gave us the opportunity to work out some challenges. Not all, because as we know, this year has been very unexpected with our supply chain issues. So some of the challenges that we worked out was, just first off, communicating to students and their families that these take-home meal bags are available, what's in them, and how they can access them. We don't want them being left in students' backpacks for the items to get out of temperature. So by letting parents know that these are coming home and getting the principal support and finding the best way for each school site to get those bags out. We have some that are doing like a reverse BIC where they're rolling out the bags to each classroom. We have others where they're setting up stations at the exit points. And then we have some where just based off of staffing, they are coming through the cafeteria to grab them on their way out of school. Some other challenges that we faced with this service model is just our kitchen capacity. Sending so many meals home, we need lots of refrigeration and freezer storage for individually wrapped items. So we have had to make some adjustments and flexibilities, and we've been lucky enough to utilize a lot of grant funds for bringing in additional equipment so that we can make it work. Of course, another huge challenge has been staffing, even just having enough team members out in the field. We are short about 150 more bodies than we are in a typical year. And then in addition to that, we are asking a lot of our staff to switch to later and longer hours so that they are able to pass out those bags. And then, of course, you know, what we're all facing right now, supply chain issues. We are not immune to them, so we are making, just as Barbara said, lots of substitutions and facing a lot of shorts, but we have been able to get all of the items we need to meet those meal patterns so far. We did put in for the waiver that allows, you know, for the flexibility and without being penalized financially. If we have that, we are being extremely careful with our supper right now, though, and making sure that that is all up to par, as we do have a supper audit this year. So that's fun to do that during a pandemic. So the big takeaway that we had and what we are, you know, keeping as our focus moving forward is just to be like Gumby. We actually have a great team member who went out and probably bought up the whole supply of little Gumby toys that were available on Amazon and gave them out to all of our, you know, supervisors in the field just to remind them, hey, we got to stay flexible this year and remain calm, because this is not just happening to us, it's happening everywhere. And we've been trying to communicate that to our families too, so that they can be understanding. You know, even though we would like to be out of this pandemic and back to normal with these lingering impacts on the supply chain and labor, we just don't see that happening in the near future. So we just are doing what we can. That's all I have. If you go to the next slide, if you wanted to see any of our menus, I saw that that was a request. If you go to our website and then find our food and nutrition services page, our menus are posted there, or you can follow us on any social media. I'll send it back to you, Clarissa.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tara. And wow, Gumby, a little bit of a blast from the past, but yeah, just appreciate you being here. I mean, being short 150 people and all the work that you and your team are still able to do is really impressive. So thank you for that overview and just talking through all the ways that you're still maximizing those flexibilities. And I think you reiterated the point that I made earlier around CACFP after school meal program on weekends. And just a reminder again that that meal does not have to be served technically after school. There is flexibility in what you want that meal to be. It can be a breakfast, it can be a lunch, or it can be, you know, a supper type meal. So just wanted to reiterate again, because I think that's really important to point out. All right, next slide. I think with that, we are done with all of our presentations, but definitely have some time left for questions. And I saw quite a few come in, and Tara, I'm very impressed that you were able to see those and then continue to speak and answer those at the same time. So we are going to get through these. I'll let our speakers know if they're targeted to them, and then we'll close out in a bit with some additional resources. So the first question, we will definitely share all of the menus that we're able to get from our speakers today. So we'll have that go out with the follow-up materials. And then we did see a question for Doreen around the parent meals. And Doreen, I know that you addressed that in the comment box, but just in case people are on their phone, can you share a little bit about those adult meals and how those were covered with your partnership with the food bank?
Yeah, absolutely. Our food bank secured funding for family adult meals. And so we tracked the meal counts, and they provided a reimbursement for those meals at cost. So it was really wonderful that we were able to provide the whole family food.
Great, thank you. And similarly, another question for you, Doreen, and I don't think this applies as much to our school friends because they usually have bigger, storage operations, but how do you handle your storage, if there are any storage challenges? How do you handle that at your YMCA building?
Yeah. We do have storage challenges, and it was tough in the summertime, especially for our vendors who could only deliver on alternate days. So for the first time, we had meals in our facilities, which are not traditional kitchens. So our vendor actually delivered refrigerators for us. And in other cases, the food bank helped us purchase refrigerators and storage. And in other cases, those after school programs that really have no space whatsoever, we've unfortunately had to really limit our services to snack. Though we want to provide a meal, it's also about being creative about delivery times, using shelf-stable meals, and then asking who can provide proper refrigeration. So we were so happy that the food bank also stepped up in that regard and granted us $10,000 to buy, refrigerators.
Great, thank you. And then the next sort of pair of questions was around staffing. So there was a question around, is anyone hiring workers for overtime to create the weekend meals, or if there's a second shift of workers? And I know, Tara, you addressed this, and it sounds like staff are working later. But I would love to open it up and see if any of our speakers have any tips or tricks on this. From what we've heard from other sponsors in schools is that it generally kind of gets combined with the other workload, and maybe weekend meals look a little bit different, so they're not as intensive to pull together. But I'll stop there and I'll turn it over. I saw Barbara, you came off camera, so maybe I'll turn it over to you to see if you have any insight on this.
So we are paying overtime to probably 90% of our staff. We pay them, if they'll come in early, we pay them extra, on Thursday and Friday to pack the weekend meals or the snack and suppers that we're sending home. We're paying them to stay after or to work late to prepare the weekend meals, not the weekend meals, the snacks and suppers that we're doing Monday through Thursday. And we have had success with that. We are using, in our elementary schools, we are using Google Forms and our attendance software program, which is Synergy, to take pre-orders for our snacks and supper in elementary. And that has significantly helped us. So we don't have to pack 500, but we only have to pack, say, 200 for the 200 kids that really want it. So overtime for us has definitely been the way to go, the only way we could go.
That's the same for us. We are paying a lot of overtime, and we also operate using a lot of 2-hour substitute workers. So some of those may be scheduled to work specifically on bagging items or be scheduled at a later time than what would have normally happened. We're also experiencing issues because many of our schools went to late start times. I believe that is a statewide mandate in California. It may not have gone into effect statewide, but our district decided to implement it early. So that's been another challenge. Just in general, our programs are shifting to later times.
Great, thank you both. All right, and we got an interesting question from someone named Larry around how state agencies are interpreting the usage of the CACFP waivers, because like I mentioned earlier, it is tied to the need, and we have heard that some state agencies are interpreting that a little bit more strictly, especially if all schools are back in session. And it sounds like all of our speakers on today haven't had issues with that, particularly with their state agencies. So that may be something that we can follow up on offline. And I would be interested too, if anyone else is hearing the same thing, that maybe it's a little bit harder to make the case for weekend meals, would love to touch base, and we can definitely provide some technical assistance on that, because really we know that families are struggling with food insecurity at higher rates, that most states are seeing some version of either virtual or families are choosing to stay at home and learn that way. So we can definitely help to provide support around that, because as I'm sure everyone knows, there's kind of firm guidance on that, and there is some opportunities to work with your state agency on that issue. So I don't have a clear answer for you, but I did want to flag that we saw your question and definitely want to work with you on that. All right, and then just maybe to close out, I saw a couple of questions come in around what the activity is looking like, or the enrichment requirement is looking like if people are using those waivers. So I know our partner from the Gulf Coast mentioned that they are using a mix of academics and nutrition, and they're creating a virtual enrichment library for their sites to use, which is really great. I know that a lot of partners have come up with worksheets and different collections of tools that can be used as the enrichment requirement. But maybe what I'll do here is just give all of our speakers a chance to share what that looks like, and we can perhaps close out that way.
our enrichment activities are not only nutrition focused. I believe that the website is called Box Kids, BOKS. Again, that's on our district website on our food services page. If you'd like to check it out, I believe it has lots of fun activities that range in topic, but they're pretty interactive.
So we're doing postings online on our website and on our social media, and they're not, they are tend to be geared towards nutrition or healthy eating or farm to school activities, but they also include just fun activities to do that, wellness for the child and the family.
Great. And Doreen, did you have anything to add to that? Hope you might be muted.
Nope.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry.
Okay,
Nope.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, and I would just add too that obviously with the enrichment requirement, it does have to be offered to all students if you are providing that meal, but you do not need to track they are actually completing a resource or a worksheet. So again, there is a little bit of flexibility with that requirement. And I did put a plug in the chat. If anyone listening in has some really great tools that you've been using over the last year and a half, feel free to send those to me at chayes@frac.org. We'd love to combine those and include those as kind of a catch-all resource collection for everybody listening in. Great. Well, I think we actually got through all the questions, and thank you all for sending those in. We had some really great ones and hope we addressed all of those, but I want to go ahead and just be mindful of people's time and start to wrap us up. So Naomi, if you could go to the next slide. I wanted to just quickly mention that we continue to update our COVID-19 page on different updates and taking a look at the waivers and tracking those. And then we do have a resource specifically on serving meals on weekends, school holidays, and breaks. And we do have a webinar next week on our report that's coming out on participation in the program. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. And you can always find our events at frac.org/events. So I want to go ahead and just thank our speakers so much. So Doreen, Barbara, and Tara for taking time out of your very busy day. Some are skipping meetings to hop on here, which is really appreciated. But we know you are all facing a lot with schools being in different types of session and supply chain issues, and we just really appreciate you taking time to talk about this really important topic because, like I mentioned earlier, weekends, holidays, and school breaks really do add up and to provide a really important opportunity to address food insecurity for the students that we care about. So we'll make sure that everybody gets the recording of today's event, and if you have any questions after we hop off, feel free to email me and we can get you connected to speakers or answer those questions for you. So thank you all for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your day and we hope you can join us again next time. Thank you.